Hi, Temperament again. We're here with video number 2 of thriving after the CV-19 virus epidemic, pandemic, lockdown, whatever you want to call it. Well, like you, like me, I'm now on, I don't know how many days of in my house. And well, I'm human and I'm starting to have human reactions, probably just like you. But on this video today, I wanted to introduce some of the basic foundational concepts that I'm going to use to talk about in this series. And I want to introduce some biology concepts, some mind concepts and whatever, but I want to keep it really, really simple. And you need to understand how we process information, how basic economic theory used to work versus the new field of behavioral economics. And I want to give you a little bit of an understanding of what I mean when we talk about behavioral finance, behavioral economics. But trust me, it's going to be pretty straightforward, no numbers, no graphs, keep it simple. And it starts with understanding that at the top of your head, you've got this organ. Again, it's about the size of your two fists together. It's your brain. Your brain is incredibly complex, trillions of cells and synapses and a lot of cool stuff going on. Your brain keeps you alive. You've got your primitive brain, your midbrain, and your upper brain. That's a very simple way of thinking in things, but your brain is your body. It's all connected, constantly exchanging information. And for my belief, your brain is really there to do one thing: keep you alive and pass on your genes. Your mind is a little bit different. We really don't know what your mind is. Philosophers and scientists for generations have been fighting over this dilemma. What is the mind? The mind is where your consciousness resides. And in my opinion, your mind makes you you. Your mind is what guides you through life. Your brain on autopilot keeps you alive, pumps the blood, regulates the temperature. But where do those conscious thoughts come from? How do you think? How do you choose? How do you make decisions? Well, that's an area that is evolving. We really don't know. The field of neuroeconomics is getting into this. The field of neuroscience is getting into this. And you're learning more and more about how the brain works and the function of the brain and the difference between mechanical brain functions and consciousness. But here's what you need to know. In your mind is where we find emotions and reasons, will and intention. And it's a very complex interaction. And to be honest, as I said before, we don't understand it. But here's the key takeaway. We're not rational. We're not nearly as rational as we think. I mean, the most certified card-carrying PhD in applied statistics is not a rational being. And what that simply means is that our unbiased rational thought is an illusion because of the way our brain and mind work. Our brains evolve very piecemeal over eons, and it's not perfect. So when our brain goes and something pops into your mind, it's from a very associative process that goes back and reaches to your experience and your environment and other events to bring together a perception of reality that you believe, but it may not in fact be true. Feelings of knowing are more convincing than knowing we have limits to our reason. Let me explain what I mean by that. We tend to rely, we have to rely. We could not survive if we didn't rely on our feeling brain, on our emotions. We could never get out of bed. And if you don't believe people rely on their feelings, just goes around media. Today, particularly when you're talking about one side thinks that the virus happened one way, the other side thinks it's another way, one group of politicians thinks the other is evil, it's all driven by our mind and our emotions and our humanness. When we say, or somebody stands up and says, I am rational, they're not. They're emotional in their perception of being rational. So enough of that. We'll get into this probably more in follow-on discussions. And actually, we're talking about doing another book on this whole concept of money and emotions. But for now, just realize that you've got this imperfect brain on the top of your head. It's the most important organ in your body. It does magnificent things. It recalls great experience years ago. It makes you who you are. And it also puts you in a position to do often crazy things with money. And today, during the CV-19 epidemic, if you will, your brain is in charge and it's driving you to do crazy things because of emotions. Now, your belief set is part of your emotions. Your belief set is a function of your family and your peer group. Where you grew up, how you grew up, has a tremendous impact on how you think and feel about money. But you have to realize that your money perceptions are always a filter on how you make your money choices. And the key is you can reframe and change your money perceptions or beliefs, but it's really, really difficult. It's kind of like diet and exercise. Diets are hard, but they can happen. Exercise, well, I exercise all the time, but sometimes it's really difficult to get out there. I can change my patterns in diet. I can change my patterns in exercise. But sometimes it takes a coach. Sometimes it takes an intervention. Sometimes it takes a significant emotional event before I'm going to do that. And it's the same thing with your money. The last element that impacts your spending decision and your choices significantly is your culture. And you've got a microculture and a macroculture. Your microculture might be your family. And take it out another ring, it might be your neighborhood, then your block, your school system, your work. Those are microcultures, and they influence you all the time on how you take your spending decisions, how you perceive the world, how you perceive what's important, where you set your priorities with regard to your spending. And then your macroculture, I would say there's a culture in the United States. It's often been said that we are a consumption culture. Our culture is different than others. The way we look and feel about money, the way we value certain items, the way we value certain people, that's a function of our culture. And all this comes together in a very complex way to unconsciously put you in a position that most of your spending patterns are unknown to you, why you do them and how you do them. 95 to 99% of your spending is automatic, unconscious, and it is a result of your past history. It's a result of your biology, your belief set, and your culture. Well, I grew up being trained in the area of pretty traditional economics. And traditional economics basically says that people are rational. We go back to Adam Smith, 1776, Wealth of Nations, and he is kind of the granddaddy of all this. But the concept of traditional economics is it's a rational man concept, that we have enough information to make rational decisions to our betterment. And if we really believe that, I think you would question what's going on around us. I mean, if nothing else with social media and modern media, we have a window on the world that shows human behavior in ways we've never seen it before. I think YouTube is a multi-billion-dollar industry and company and culture today because we're able for the first time to record video in real time of people doing really stupid things with their lives, their behavior, and their money. We're human. So in the last decade or so, a number of economists and behavioral scientists and social scientists have been questioning this rational man concept, that we are in fact wired to do the right things with our money for the right reasons. And behavioral economics is really where I'm coming from today. I started teaching classic economics and I found that there were some problems with what I was teaching. What I was teaching in the classroom was not happening in the real world. Let me give you a case. When I taught at the Naval Academy, obviously the Naval Academy has a bunch of really smart people there. And it's some of the best of the brightest from the United States, men and women who are there. Most of them are very strong in math science. They're engineers. And you would think, if you subscribe to the rational man concept, that when I put them through one of my traditional economics classes, the behavior that I taught in the classroom would in fact be reflected in their day-to-day lives. Well, I'll tell you, it's not. I can remember cases where some of my best students would get into incredible problems with money because their money behavior was irrational. Even though they could tell me what the real economic principles were with classical economics, what they were doing was completely different. And I found this throughout my personal and professional career. As a Marine officer working with young Marines, I would say that most of the problems we had with retention, performance, discipline, promotions, etc., often came down to money and bad decisions. Then I had the opportunity again to go to the Naval Academy, and I saw some incredible things. It takes a young mid to do really, really stupid things with money, and it got so bad that some of our young second lieutenants and ensigns were actually losing their commissions because of their money choices. I also did a tour as an aide to the Assistant Secretary of the Navy for Financial Management, and in that area I got to work with the House and the Senate and the staffers and the budget committees and all that kind of crazy stuff. And there I absolutely saw crazy money behavior. That also translated into my practice as a financial advisor. And I learned very early that my job as a financial advisor was really to understand and manage behavior, not money. Think about that again. Manage behavior, understand fears, understand knowledge points, understand misinformation, understand emotions with money and decision taking and the impact of that. Not money. Money actually is pretty easy, but the emotions are hard. So let me give you a laundry list of what behavioral economics thinks you do with money on your brain. First and foremost, people are not rational when they choose and spend. People are not talented and efficient in acquiring and processing information. We do not always make smart decisions and without regret. We are not good at determining the future consequences of our decisions. People do not always have enough information for them to make a sound decision. People do not always take or try to gain maximum wealth and income. Do you know that? People are not always trying to make the most money. People do in fact care and are influenced by how others think and act around them. People do not have a very narrow self-interest. They will only do what is best for them. That's the whole empathy thing. One of the classics in economics to help yourself. But we're finding with behavioral economics that may not be the case. People do not always have a narrow self-interest point of view, and they are in fact altruistic. Just look around today. What's all these people are doing? The healthcare providers, the first responders, the people that are rising up today to help neighbors and the like. That's human behavior at its best. People are not pretty much alike. We are different in how we collect information, how we make decisions, touch points with regard to how we're wired, our belief set, and our culture. People live, work, interact, and spend in markets that are not always efficient. I know you find this hard to believe, but the whole efficient market concept might work very well for a small 18th century open market, farmers market in England. But it's different when you look at an international market in today's economy. There are inefficiencies. Markets are not all-knowing and all-stabilizing. That can be a problem. So what's this mean to you? It means that we all live, work, interact, and spend our money in ways that are not always efficient. That's what I write about. That's what we're going to talk about here. And you need to understand this as you prepare to weather the storm, if you will. If you hope to thrive after the CV-19 pandemic, you need to get your head around the fact that you are you. You are an irrational being. That you have to realize that emotions drive most of what you're doing. That you have to sit down and take an inventory of what makes you tick, particularly with money. So the bottom line is behavior matters and the rules of money have changed, and that's what we're going to talk about in the remainder of these videos. Have a great day.